Hello, hello, hello. It is I, Courtenay Taylor, representative of Nerds Vote, here to bring you 2021's first episode of Between Two Nerds. Unfortunately, it is between one nerd and another nerd today because one of our nerds is missing. So, JP Karliak will be back with us soon. If you are just joining us for the first time, this is Between Two Nerds. We are an offshoot of nerdsvote.com, which is an organization formed by nerds for nerds to talk about the importance of voting in every election, every time, and being an informed participant in our democracy. Our amazing guest to join us for our new format here on YouTube is the unbelievable Cissy Jones. You know her, yay! You know her as Delilah from Firewatch. You are probably loving on her as Nora in the new Call of the Sea game, which I know you're super excited about, Cissy, and that has taken you in some amazing places, yes?
Yes, it really has.
Tell us a little bit about, we try to strike a little balance here between work and play, so we can kick off a little bit because Call of the Sea is sort of top of mind at the moment. It's getting a lot of amazing reviews. So tell us a little bit about the game and your experience.
Yeah, so the game is made by a Spanish studio called Out of the Blue Studios. It's their first game, which is truly remarkable. It's kind of a throwback to Myst and some of the older puzzle games of yore, but with a really beautiful narrative sewn in. So I play the role of Nora, who is a woman in the 1930s who has a mysterious illness. And my husband, Harry, played by Yuri Lowenthal, goes on a journey to find a cure for my illness and goes missing. And so Nora goes to save him. And it's kind of her journey through this land of mysterious puzzles. And the way that the team describes it is that it's, even though it's based in an H.P. Lovecraftian universe, it's a rise to sanity as opposed to a descent into madness, which I really love.
Love it. Love it. And I know, so spoiler alert, Cissy and I are good friends. I know that oh, beautiful shirt, by the way.
Hello. Hi.
What's that? A little, I don't know, a little Nerds Vote merch. Love you in our Lady Liberty shirt that you can get at nerdsvote.com/shop. I know you had to do some things for this game that you maybe hadn't done before.
Yes, I had to sing.
What was that?
It was terrifying. I like to sing in my car and in the shower, but I don't typically sing for public consumption unless it's late night karaoke and I've had a few rounds.
In there with you.
So yeah, this was yes, you have. I've witnessed it.
This was on my phone.
This was really a challenge, and Yuri and I both, we're in the same boat. Whereas we work, we're working actors, but we're not working singing actors. And so the song that they had us do was a duet. It's a remake of a 1918 song called "Dear Old Pal," and it's funny because the 1918 version is very much in that time, with the like, oh my life, like this crazy like caterwauling.
Why you don't sing all the time, Cissy?
But so they rearranged it so that it was a beautiful, more modern version, but could still fit within that setting. And it came out really well. And I have a song on Spotify, which is super weird. I never thought that would be a thing. But yeah, it's been really cool. Going through that journey, pushing myself beyond what I'm comfortable with, working with a vocal coach, working with Yuri, recording a duet separately from our booths during quarantine, and, piecing it together to make sure that we knew still what the counts were going to be when the other person was singing it in their booth at a different time. And it worked out.
Right, because to do it remotely, you can't really, I only know from doing sessions and stuff, you can't really do it on the same line because it bleeds and it's weird, right?
And so we did a 2-part harmony at the very end. So we did a harmony where I, go low, he go whatever, but we had to memorize each other's timing so that the harmony fit, and it worked out beautifully.
And you go low and he goes high?
No, I go high.
Oh, I was like, man, that would be amazing. Yuri, like, ah!
Yeah, no. Yeah, it was a stretch for me because I clearly sit in a lower vocal register. So
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was like, Yuri sounds like he's, 20 a lot of the time. So I could totally see him going high and you just being like,
yeah,
basso profundo. Oh,
finding my inner tenor. It was great.
great. That's so awesome. I do love that when you get to happen upon a role like that that really gets you not only to push like emotionally, but also to get to do some actual physical thing, like because we work in booths, we don't get to do like the sword fighting and the horseback riding and stuff like that. I'm hoping that someday
Someday.
someone's going to be like, you know what, you need. I mean,
Performance capture, horseback
yeah, give me
riding.
some more performance capture because with horses, because
Right.
I want an excuse to go horseback
Get
riding.
them dotted up. I'm here for it. Yes.
Exactly, exactly. It's not. I'm sure I'm happening now, if not soon.
Yeah.
Um, so if you are joining us for the first time, this is Between Two Nerds. We are an offshoot of nerdsvote.com. You can check us out on nerdsvote.com. We have some real basic things that you can do. You can register to vote on our site. You can buy some merch like the lovely Cissy is wearing right now. We have all kinds of groovy shirts and bumper stickers and cross stitch patterns and stuff like that. We cater to all nerds. But we're just going to talk a little bit about sort of the process of voting. Now, I know that you are very civic minded and socially engaged as far as being an American and participating in our democracy. And so where did that come from? Were you always like this, or was it something you grew into?
That's a good question. I think I kidded myself before that I was, but I think recent events really shook a lot of us awake. I don't think I know I didn't really understand the importance of voting, not only for president, but also for down ticket, elections and things like that locally. I didn't understand how the separation of power worked, what the difference between a congressperson and a senator was, what the difference between, I don't know, local elections and state elections and things like that. I wasn't involved. I thought I was. I thought I was all like woke. I was not. So it's been a journey. It's really been a journey to not only own up to my my past ignorance in a lot of ways, but also to take responsibility this time around and not sit back on my haunches and let somebody else do the work.
And is there now, I mean, obviously we're in the middle of a pandemic, so this last voting session was a little bit strange, but is there something now that you've decided, like, do you have a specific way that you've liked to vote in the past? Has it changed because of the pandemic? Like, are you, now that you're woke, um, is there a process or a preferred way that you cast your ballot?
Well, I think voting by mail, obviously right now is the most important way we can vote. If you're in a state that allows it, because you can avoid crowds, you don't have to stand in lines. As long as you get your ballot in the mail on time, your vote's getting counted. And they have, at least in California, I'm not sure about other states, but we have tracking apps, so you can track your application or your voting ballot and see, your ballot has been received, it's been counted. Good job for democracy, right? So this year was great to have that. And, in 2018, also during the midterms, it's so easy to do. You just, you have your stuff at home. You can pre-research everything, mark down the things that you want. I think in 2018, I actually went to a polling station with my daughter to show her, like, this is what voting is. This is how we make our voices heard. And she was like, oh, okay, weirdo. But, you get the sticker and then she gets to put it on and tell her friends, like, my mom voted to, and that matters. Like, I didn't get to do that when I was a kid. I didn't see my parents doing things like that with me to help me understand the importance of it. So it's important for me to do that with my children now. So in the 2020 election, when I dropped off my mail-in ballot, I took my other daughter with me to the drop box, and we drop the ballot in together. You
So
know, it's symbolic, but important. And she still talks about it.
no, it's really, I mean, my parents are foreigners, so voting wasn't a thing in our house because they weren't able to. But I remember my dad taking me to the blood bank because he had really rare blood type. And that to me, like every 8 weeks, I go and give blood now because it's just been embedded in me since I was a kid. So you think that it's not, imprinting on them somewhere, but it is.
Yeah.
And it's important, especially because they're little girls on top of it, to know that like as women, we need to also be vigilant.
Yeah.
Everyone, all Americans
Yeah.
do, but
And
with
we've been
rollbacks on women's rights.
we've also been talking a lot about the historical vote. That women didn't always have the right to vote, that we had to fight for it. Women went to jail for it. Women were beaten for it. And that is such a strange concept to them. They're quite young, but to impress upon them how important it is to take part.
Yeah.
Because people literally fought for this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everybody should, I mean, as Americans, we fought to be Americans. We fought,
Yeah.
as people of color and as women to get the right to vote. So it's so important not to squander it. And everybody, in other countries, not everyone gets to do that. So no matter your color, creed, gender, whatever, someone has fought for you to have the right to vote. And I think we've definitely learned that if you don't show up, someone is going to make a decision for you.
Yep.
So if you would like to be the decider, then you should make a decision by voting, because otherwise, they're going to fill the void, and you might not like the way it gets filled, right?
Yeah. I did some research this last year about close races and about races that were decided by 1 vote, 5 votes. I mean, the 2000 presidential election was decided by 537 votes in Florida. Like, that's insane. So even in this most recent election, we had the highest turnout we've ever had, and it was still half the country. Now, there are children included in the 350 million of us, right? So there are a good number of people who cannot vote yet, but I think a lot of people have been so disenfranchised just to think that my vote doesn't matter. And I'm here to say it does. It sure does.
And it's going to matter if you don't. That's not going to change unless you get involved, for sure. And protest votes, like, I'm not going to vote. I'm like, you showed them.
Yeah.
Didn't you?
There's a state senator, I think in Virginia in 2018, not going to U.S. Senate, but within state Senate, she won by 1 vote. Same in Idaho. It's insane. I mean, it matters. It matters.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about on the show. We talk a lot about the importance of voting close to home, because the important one is always the presidential one because it gets the most press. But really, where your vote counts, just mathematically, your vote has the most power locally, and so and also is going to affect you in your day-to-day, like feet on the ground, literally. The infrastructure of your city, public transportation, crime, schools, all the things that you're like,
I wish that would change. Great, then vote for it.
Yeah, and also the process of, it's not about just dropping off your vote and then being like, bye, see you in 2 years.
Yeah.
It's about staying involved, and people were really fired up last year, and as we come into 2021, the message for Nerds Vote, our message is that it's not over. There is no more set it and forget it. There is no more taking your hands off the wheel. And so a lot of that means, hey, call your reps, make sure that you're giving them a thumbs up or a thumbs down as to what they're doing, because it's so important that they know. And like, if like you dropping off your vote and then 2 or 4 or 6 years later voting differently, it's a long chunk of time that they don't have any feedback from you as to whether or not you like what they're doing. So I put my reps in my speed dial.
Same.
And
there, since over the last few years, there have been so many apps that make it so easy to do. So not only speed dial, but also ResistBot. You text 50409 resist, and immediately it texts back, who do you want to text to? Do you want to text to your congressman, your senator, the White House, both, all, none? Like, and it's
Which
so easy.
music? What font? Yeah.
I know it's so easy to be engaged, which is, I mean, it's really remarkable. It's truly remarkable. It's that wonderful intersection of government and technology.
Yeah.
Some of it is terrifying, but for purposes like this, it's really cool.
Yeah, and the fact that you can actually talk to your reps on Twitter, like you can actually have conversations where they will respond to you.
For better
Um,
for worse.
yeah. um, but I always think, gosh, like I've decided my New Year's resolution, and I don't normally make too many of them, but was that I would have church on Sundays because I don't actually want to talk to anybody. That's not true. I do call and talk to people when I'm trying to make my needs known, but you can call on a weekend and just leave a message, or oftentimes after hours. You don't actually have to speak to someone at your representatives. And we're certainly, even ResistBot, you can say whatever you want on there. It's called ResistBot, but whatever your inclination is politically, you
Yeah.
can let it be known. And that, if people voted in every election and just called their representatives once a week, can you imagine what would happen? I
I
just
can. I can, because I feel like we're shifting in that direction. I feel like people who are turning 18 now are more engaged than they've ever been. And I think that is such a bright spot in a lot of craziness. Is to realize that people are realizing how much it matters.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really great. It's really cool to see. It's awesome to see people organizing and talking and getting their message out and finding ways to have their message be heard, whether it's via voting drives or protests or online things, virtual events, whatever. We have the ability, even in a pandemic, um, to make our voices heard.
Yeah. And we have the time now, because
Well,
apparently we're not going out anywhere. And speaking of which, not to bang on about this being a pandemic, because at this point it's like, I feel like it just is what it is right now.
yeah.
But like in these extreme circumstances, just like creatively, both outside of a pandemic and within a pandemic, how do you stay motivated and creative? Especially now that we're still in lockdown, and that's very important to abide by that. But I know you're in a house with a couple little kids and not a lot of time on your hands. So how do you manage, and how do you stay fresh and interested in work and just soul wise creatively?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie. It's
Fine.
probably the hardest thing I've ever done. I have an incredibly supportive partner, and we split the duties 50-50. I said duty, between with our family, which is imperative. Um, I have I have a really great family. I am happy to be happy to be stuck with the people I'm stuck with, for sure. But in terms of work, it helps that I love what I do. I really, truly do. I eat, sleep, breathe it. I feel it in my bones. It drives me. It makes me happy. So that helps a lot. There's nothing, well, I don't want to say there's nothing I love more because I have kids. Um,
And they're listening. So you
um,
know, no,
but
but you
I
think
do,
kids.
coming in the booth and getting to play is such a great release from the stress of the outside world. Um, we get to be something different every day. And sometimes it's stressful, but most times it's not. And I love that, I feel incredibly grateful that I've found this path in life, and I'm hanging on to it with claws because I'm never letting go.
Yeah, you started out in a completely different arena, right? This
Yeah,
is not the thing that I love about you in particular. I mean, and there are so many things I love about you, but
you go.
um, that uh, is that you are not like a classically trained actor. You have not been, gunning for this your whole life. You came into the game late, like I did, and I just love that you're personifying this idea that if you find something that you really love, you go after it, dig into it, and you can make it yours.
I have found in my life, whether it is with my job or my spouse or my friendships, if it's not meant to be, I continue to run up against these steel walls. If it's meant to be, it comes together like the teeth of a zipper, and it just goes together. It was that way when I met you. It was that way when I met my now husband. It was that way when I got into voiceover, and that's always the sign for me. If it's too hard, it's too hard for a reason. If it's really easy, probably something I should follow through on.
Yeah, I got to remember the thing about the too hard thing. I'm always like, it's a challenge. It
No.
just means I need to want it more. But that being said, I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs. First of all, I just love the fact that you were like, I go to work to escape the stress of my not work life, which is the greatest thing about being an actor, is that you can literally, it's completely reversed for most people, but we're just like, just let me get in there and voice the dragon and get out of this, fight with my husband.
Just let me be the prostitute already.
Exactly. The biotic powers, let me, to blow something up. It's really cathartic. I mean, I feel so grateful. There's been a lot of, we get to work out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
We do. In the long term of just being an actor, and in the short term of just being able to shut the door and literally shut the door on the world.
Yeah.
And not have to engage with someone in order to, I mean, obviously we have to have the finished product for it to get out there, but the process of how we do is so insular, both for good and for bad. But one of the high points is that I can create something with a piece of paper in my head and just be totally lost in it. And
1,000%.
Yeah. And walk out and completely different. I mean, I've gone through some really hard times, and different characters and jobs have gotten me through it.
Yeah.
Even on the day of, on certain elections when things didn't go my way, and going into work and being able to sort of.
But also recognizing your limits, it's hard in our line of work to take a day off, right? Because any day we don't work is a day we don't get paid. But realizing that there are days that you have to set aside. You have to take the day off. You have to take a minute to go to the beach or go for a hike or, have full downtime with your family, no screens. It's hard to do. It's really hard to do because the actor in us is like, but more. I want to work. I always want to work. But it's important to do.
Yeah, for sure. I have struggled even just being just between all of the stuff that, has to be maintained in the real world and work stuff. Yeah. I'm like, I can't even pull it together to just be like, just take a bath. Just take a little bath. How about that? So I know what my answer is, but what is how do you put that into action? How do you make yourself step away from the booth? How do you make yourself, I'm zooming in, hold on. How do you, because I know that stuff is good for me.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily do it.
I have set times that I meditate and that I work out, whether it's yoga or weights or whatever. Even in my house, I have this weird little corner in my room where I roll out my mat and, get down and work out and just try to let go for a minute. Meditation has been really helpful for me. There's a lot of people that have started doing online meditations, which has been great. There's a place in LA called The Den, and they moved their entire course line online. So that's been really helpful. Yeah, it's a lot of that. And then I cook every night. So I have to get out. It's not that it's not stressful cooking, because trying to find out what my children will eat that day is always a guess.
I love your stories about what do you mean? You loved it 3 days ago.
Literally, this was my favorite thing yesterday. Yeah, I changed my mind. Great. Awesome. But while I'm cooking, I'm listening to audiobooks or, fun podcasts. I love listening to fiction. I've had to kind of take a massive step away from the news. But there's some really great podcasts out there. I love The Adventure Zone. The first season is all, just this super fun incredible storytelling, D&D campaign, which is great. Um, Various audiobooks have been really fun to listen to, and or have calls while I'm cooking, and I'm like, well, you can look at the back of my head while I'm chopping chicken, but hi. But it's also been really important to stay in touch with my friends, which has been hard to do during all of this. But I think it's more important than ever.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. My answer is honestly to have people like you in my life who are like, yo, we are going to the beach. I find actually that glomming onto people who have kids is really valuable in this time because I don't have kids. So I can work anytime, all the time. There's no one here to pry my hands off of the computer, right?
Yeah.
So glomming onto my friends who have kids is great because they're like, you guys are like, we got to get these kids out of the house. We got to you got to do something. And even non-pandemic times, where you're like, you know what? I actually don't go to the National History Museum because I just don't. So again,
Let's go.
Find friends who have children and pretend that you are one of their children and just go on field trips with them. Cissy, for one, is amazing. She just we'll go to the beach and she hands me snacks. The childhood I wanted. I find that that's it's so important to have people in your close, who will make you live differently.
It's crazy how easy it is to just, I think you call it marinating in your pajamas, and then you realize you haven't left the house in like 5 days, and you're like, oh my God, I need like sunlight. I need vitamin D. I got to get out of here.
I've literally been marinating in these footy pajamas for 3 days. Again, it comes down to who you really are about how clean your house is. Is it because you're somebody who's a clean freak, or is it because people come over? Because now I know that like hygiene and house cleanliness is completely based externally for me. Because if this pandemic doesn't end, then I'm literally going to die in a pair of like onesie pajamas under a pile of newspapers, because since nobody's coming here,
I'll come get you with my crazy, like, if I don't take a shower, my hair just is like, so I'll be the crazy lady that like comes rummaging through your stuff to help you out, and they'll be like,
either that or just take my clothes and leave me there in my onesie, because
yes,
my shoe collection awaits. Now, I know that you talked a little bit about the online meditation, which is awesome. And I'm actually going to try it because why? Because I have friends like Cissy who are like, try this thing. And I'm like, okay, I trust you implicitly. I'm going to live differently. Are there other like external, do you have charities or groups that you like to work with or like to support? Because I find that is a huge part of how I am still feeling engaged with the world, is by doing like Kiva loans and, putting money towards, because, it's amazing when you don't go outside, you all of a sudden don't have the bills for lunch and dinners and things like that. So I've been trying to squirrel away little bits of money to give to organizations I love. And I was just wondering if you have something like that.
I do. I also have found friends that do Patreons, for various things that they're working on, and I like to support my friends. I have a friend that's doing one called Chop Wood, Carry Water, and I support her monthly. There's also various charities that I've always kind of been involved with. One is called Destiny Rescue, that helps rescue girls and children from the sex trade. Obviously, ACLU is very important in my life, and the Southern Poverty Law Center. I also worked a lot with the ASPCA. Gosh, I'm trying to remember.
That's amazing.
The Michael J. Fox Foundation is one that we are involved with every year. Yeah, my husband and I both really try to make an effort of giving back often, because we are so fortunate, not only just in general, but also in this pandemic, that we're both still working, and we've been really lucky, and why not share the wealth?
Well, I love that. I love that. I've asked this question to a lot of people, and it's always sort of charitable or political. I love the idea. No one said Patreons or whatever they're called. Is it Patreon? Patreon?
Patreon.
Patreon. Okay. Nobody said that yet, and I love that you are. I actually know the one that you speak of, Chopwood Carry Water, which is amazing, amazing woman, Jessica
Mm-hmm.
Craven, excuse me,
Craven. Mm-hmm.
Jessica Craven, and she's somebody who is doing the work for a lot of us. Obviously, you can find people politically who support your views, but she is very much engaged in the political process and has a lot of, a daily email that shows up that kind of inspires you to take, democracy by the horns and like do a little something every day. And whether or not you agree with her politics, I love that having this be part of your process. Like every day you work out, you brush your teeth, you do a little something to steer this country.
Well,
And
the great thing about what she's doing is that she provides scripts. She provides, it's your 5 minutes of democracy every day, right? And so it's here's what you can say if you call your senators. Here's what you can say if you call your congresspeople. Here's a resist bot text if you want to send this. Here's some extra credit if you want to come do phone banking with us or postcarding. It was because of her I got very involved in postcarding campaigns, both in 2018 and in 2020. I think I wrote in 2020 800 postcards.
woo!
Was we forget how to write. So I was like, oh god, I am.
You're
But
so
it was,
used to this, and then you're like, what is this? What is this
yeah.
turtle?
But since we couldn't go canvas, it was a listen. I don't know if it helps. They say it does. They say it does. But it helped me feel like I was doing something and not just sitting on my butt, having anxiety. So Jessica Craven is amazing. If she is your political flavor, she's great. She's amazing. But yeah, so there's a lot of different Patreons. There's obviously the politically focused ones. There's also my friend Sam has one called The Sound Architect, and he has like a podcast and a newsletter and stuff like that. So he has a Patreon that people can donate to. Pretty much every one of your favorite podcasts has some sort of fundraising event. The Adventure Zone is on a different organization. I forget what it's called. But yeah, find people whose art you appreciate and support them. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. I mean, and a little bit every day or a little recurring donation is something that means a lot to people that are doing those, that they can count on every month. And
yeah,
you
and
don't
I think
notice it. It's a cup of coffee.
yeah, and I think if there's one thing I hope we take away from with this pandemic is that art matters. How would we have gotten through this without Netflix and Amazon Prime, or not Prime, but Prime Video, and
Mhm.
um, you know movies.
Also Amazon Prime, apparently.
Well, Amazon Prime, but they're doing okay. But video games and just your favorite streamers and
Those
podcasts.
things,
Yeah,
books and podcasts.
yeah. I mean, yeah. It's more important than ever, I feel, to support people who are creating beautiful things,
And
right?
treat them as just as importantly as, we were talking about this earlier, lawyers and, people are like, yeah, we'll pay them because it's something concrete, I guess. And we don't realize how important art is and
Yeah,
how soul sustaining it is.
yeah,
And how it will, it takes you into the future. It gives you hope for the future. And I know that you have to sign off soon. So I want to give you that time. But I just speaking of the future, what do you want your reps, both locally or nationally? What do you hope for this year? For them to accomplish.
it's a tall order. I mean, I think first and foremost, we have to get the pandemic under control. We have to. There's got to be something. I'm hoping the vaccine rollout will be a little more streamlined. Hopefully before the new variant comes and takes over. I think that's got to be first and foremost. We have to get back to some semblance of a life. This cannot go on. You know, I am in a house with two kids, school aged, who are staring at a computer screen all day because they can't go be with their classmates and their teachers, and they're young, and it's awful. It sucks. Um, so we've got to find a way to get through that. Um, if that happens, when that happens, I'm just gonna put that out there. You know, I would also like to see LA really work, dig in and find a way to help the homeless population. You know, it's so out of control right now. There's got to be something. We've got to curb the housing prices. We've got to curb rental prices. We've got to take care of people. There's so much needless suffering right now, and it doesn't need to be this way. I would love to see something done about that, and I have hope for that. Um, I'm going to leave it at that for now. Those are my two biggies.
Ah, Cissy, you're the freaking best. I'm like, okay, how do we roll this off, sign this off? So, well, obviously you are a voice actor, and as we sign off, the mic and um, the pop filter is the clue, in case you didn't know. Um, just to wrap up, this is Nerds Votes Between Two Nerds. I'm Courtenay Taylor, and I'm here with Cissy Jones. We're unfortunately wrapping things up because she's a busy lady, but I would love it if you would sign us off with some kind of a personal message or as a character, or you could sing us off as Nora. Come
You
on.
know what? What I'm going to say is go forth in awesomeness and kindness. Be good to one another.
You'll find yourself friends like Cissy Jones, you guys, because she is amazing. And when you find them, you keep them. Also, remember to vote, stay registered, stay involved. You can hit us up at nerdsvote.com. Everything is on our homepage. And thank you so much for staying with me on this first episode of the 2021 Between Two Nerds. JP Karliak will be back with us sometime soon, and we'll be back next week. I hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you then. Cissy, thanks so much. Mwah! Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.